everybody. Welcome to the Prognard. I am your host, Jacob Williams. So in this segment of Armchair General, I wanted to feature what has to be my favorite game of 2016, which is Star Wars Rebellion. Alright, I absolutely love this game. It combines some of my favorite mechanics from Axis and Allies and the coin games. And it's just a fantastic game. I love it. And it's one of these games that I'm sad that I can't get it to the table as often as I would like, because there's a lot of depth and strategy to this game that I'm just now exploring. But what I wanted to do in this Armchair General, where I try to get a little nerdy and mathy with game analysis, I wanted to look at something that I'm seeing a lot talked about on the Board Game Geek forums, and what I'm seeing in my own personal experience, which is a opening. What I want to talk about is an opening move that I see all the time. Okay, let me give a little backdrop before I go into this. So, what usually happens is that in this game, the rebels are constantly behind the eight ball, okay? They're an insurgent faction using guerrilla warfare, and so they really modeled this well in this game by giving the rebels a lot less military assets than the Empire. So the Empire starting off with the Death Star and a buttload of Star Destroyers, AT-ATs, AT-STs, troops, just tons of stuff, right? And then the rebels get to start with a dinky Corvette, a transport, some X-Wings, Y-Wings, and a handful of troops, okay? Basically how Episode 4 starts off, is kind of the military state of this game. So what the rebel player wants to do is they want to be able to have access to the heavy weaponry that the Empire does, okay? And in this game, everything that you get is all based off of these production symbols that you'll see on the board. Here, 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 and all this stuff. And each of these different symbols mean things. I think most people watching this kind of already know this, but what I've kind of decided is I'm going to try and get a little more general with my material. So that way, people interested, in my videos, but not necessarily the game, maybe they won't be as lost and it'll be more useful for them. All right. So the rebels from very early on in the game need to have access to their big ship, which is the Mon Calamari Star Cruiser. All right. And the only way they can get that is if they can get access to this blue rectangle. Okay. Now, what's really important is there's only 3 of these planets on the board. You have Utapau, Corellia, and, appropriately enough, Mon Calamari. Okay, those are the only 3 systems on the board that have access to the blue square for capital ships, I'm going to say, which isn't 100% correct, but the biggest ships, you need to have that symbol. Okay, now the Empire is going to be jockeying for this because they want to maintain their space superiority. So they're going to be coming hard and fast. A lot of times what I see is that the rebels will do a mission called Build Alliance, which will let them get control over this planet. Okay. Now, why is this system chosen more often than anywhere else? Well, Corellia is one of the systems that the Empire can start off with. So the rebels have pretty much no hope of getting this one. Not to mention it's right next to Coruscant, which already has a bunch of, or will have some Imperial stuff right away. So this is pretty much off limits to the rebels. unless there's some very highly specialized situation that I've never seen before. And Mon Calamari is a possibility because not only does the rebel player have cards that will help, make massive swings in the loyalty here, which is kind of what this hex represents, and you'll see more on that in a minute. But the Empire can start on Seilu Kami, so it's pretty easy for the Empire to just start here, go immediately here, and subjugate that, and it's all kinds of bad stuff. But I can't remember if Mustafar is a Empire starting planet. I think it is, but even if it were, you can't go from Mustafar to Utapau because there's this weird, I don't know, space debris or space navigation hazard. They have to come to Dagobah and go here, and neither Rebel nor Empire can start on Dagobah. So Utapau tends to be a turn one planet that's highly contested. And a lot of times what you'll see is you'll see the rebels send Mon Mothma on a mission to do what's called a build alliance mission in Utapau. And what that does is if they're successful, you get to put a little marker on there showing it's rebel loyal. And if not, it remains neutral. And, no one will have access to that building capability. But in this game, kind of like in the movies, if this rebellion leader wants to go to Utapau to build that trade mission, well, old Emperor Palpatine might have something to say about that. Okay? And then this is where each player will roll off to see if that mission is successful. Now, what do I mean by a roll-off? Well, these leaders have these skills, and the build alliance requires these yellow symbols called diplomacy. Okay? And for each symbol they have, they get to roll a die to see how many successes they get. Okay? Now, Star Wars Rebellion uses these special dice. They're D6s, but they have different symbols on them, okay? And basically, the way this breaks down is this thing, which is normally a hit in combat, is what I'm going to call a success. This right here in combat is what they call a hit anything. I don't know what you call it, or I don't know what the rulebook calls it. I maybe should have looked at that. But I call it hit anything. But this counts as one success. So you have, let's see if I can show that. You have 3 of these spaces that count as just a success, okay? And then this right here, this crossed lightsaber, is what I'm going to call a critical success. It counts as 2, all right? So when you roll these dice, let's say this is Mon Mothma rolling. She would roll this. This would be a roll of 4, okay? Because you have 2 successes because of a critical, 1 success, 1 success, all right? So this would have been like Mon Mothma rolled 4 successes. Then the Emperor has to roll, and if he can tie or beat Mon Mothma, he will block her from taking control of that. Okay, so let me roll some dice here. Oh, and look what happened. He was able to tie it because he has 2 successes for 4, and in ties, the defender, the person blocking will win that tie. All right. So that's kind of how this opposed roll thing works, and this is a really standard opening move. So the question that I wanted to bring, or the thing that has been bugging me, for lack of better terminology, this past few days is, what is the probability that the rebel player will be successful in converting Utapau to rebel loyalty with the build alliance in this very standard move of Mon Mothma going out to try to build the alliance, and the Empire player holding the Emperor back to block it. Okay, and again, this can double for what might happen on Mon Calamari, because Mon Calamari has that critical blue square, which both players are going to really be jockeying for. All right, so let me move to the center of the board and get away from the action here. And let me put down my notebook. All right, I know usually I do this on envelopes, but the math involved in this video is a little more intensive, so I kind of had to plan some stuff out. All right, before I can determine the probability of this, I need to find out what's called the sample space. The sample space and probability is all of the things that could possibly happen in the experiment. Okay, and I'm actually going to move this over here, get it in the lighting a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to find the sample space, all the outcomes that could possibly happen. Okay, and to make myself clear, this is all the possibilities that could happen by rolling 3 of these specialty dice. Okay, I put the distribution of the dice right here. Okay, so you have 2 blank sides, 3 successes, and remember, one of these successes is the hit anything symbol, but outside of combat, and more specifically with skill checks, it just counts as a success, nothing special. And then we have the double lightsabers, which is a critical success. Okay, so based on this, here are the possible number of successes that could possibly happen. All right, you could have 0 successes. This is when you roll all blanks, all the way up to 6 successes, where you roll the lightsabers on all 3 dice. All right, so I've set up the sample space here, or what's going to help me determine the sample space. All right, so now what do I need to do is I need to generate all the combinations that will result in these outcomes. Okay, I think these are called random variables. I need to come up with all the combinations that make up these random variables. All right, so that's what I did here. I kept the sample space, but I abbreviated. So B stands for blank, S stands for success, C stands for critical. All right, now I wrote out all the combinations that could possibly happen. Okay, I'm not accounting for all the instances of these. For example, the way I get 0 is I have to roll a blank, and a blank, okay? And technically, because there's 2 blanks, there's like 8 different ways we can sub-permute this, but that's not really going to be necessary, okay? And you'll see why here in a minute, and it has to do with something called the fundamental counting principle. But we'll get to that in a second, okay? Just know that this is all the ways you can get zeros, which is you roll blanks on all 3. Here's how you get a 1, which is you get a success, a blank, success, blank, blank, success, and so on and so forth, all the way until you get to critical, okay? I don't think you guys want to get bored to going all into this, but this is just the unique sample space. Let me put it that way, right? And then, like I said, there's 8 different ways technically to get all blanks. So now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use what's called the fundamental counting principle to get all of those, all of the exact combinations of dice distributions in such a way that I can count them up. That's kind of a mouthful, and I'm sure I lost my train of thought halfway through. But what I'm going to do is, and listing it out like this makes it easy, because now all I really need to do is I just need to take the numbers and plug them in. So there are 2 B's, 3 successes, and only 1 critical. So what I'm going to show on my next step of work is everywhere there's a blank, I put in a number 2. So that way, when I have like blank, 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 what I'm really doing is I'm multiplying 3 numbers together. And why am I multiplying? Because as I've said before in other Armchair General videos, whenever things have to happen all together, you have to multiply them. I usually call this AND. So if I want to get a 0, I have to roll a blank, and I have to roll another blank, and I have to roll another blank. There's 2 blanks per die, so it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2. And when I multiply that out, that gives me the 8 in the sample space, or for that random variable, or for that possible outcome. All right, so I did all that and listed out that math right here. And I think I kept the same order of combinations. I might have changed something in here. And this is kind of boring. So what I'm going to do is multiply all these out. And you may be wondering why there are some pluses here. Well, let me turn back. So there's some pluses with the 1. Why are there some pluses with the 1? Did I mess up here? Oh, no, I didn't mess up. The reason why there's a plus sign, I'm just ill prepared for teaching the material, apparently. So with the 1, to get a outcome of 1, I have to have 1 success and all blanks, right? But the first die could be a success, the rest be blank. Or the first die can be a blank, then the second one be a success, and the last one be a blank. Or I could do 2 blanks and a success. And whenever you say or, you add, okay? So there's 3 distinct combinations that'll result in a 1 as the outcome. But in terms of non-distinct outcomes, I have to multiply these together, okay? And I won't bore you by doing all the math here. Oh, and also notice that the criticals, there's only 1 of those, so getting a 6 is already pretty difficult. I won't bore you with doing the math right here because I pre-did it right there, okay? So in the sample space, there's 8 ways to get 0, 36 ways to get 1, 66 ways to get 2, 63 to get 3, 33 to get 4, 9 ways to get 5, and only 1 way to get 6. Okay? So a good way to check ourselves to make sure that this math makes sense is we're rolling 3 dice with 6 different outcomes, right? So if I take 6 cubed, I get 216, and that's what all these numbers should add up, because probabilities always sum to equal 1, okay? Or a better way to put that is if I put 216 as the denominator on all these numbers and added them all together, I should get 216. So I am going to do that math on camera just to make sure. I've got 8 plus 6 is 14, plus 6 more is 20, 23, 26, 35, 36. So that's already a good sign. Our 1's digit is matching up. Carry the 3. So I've got 6, 12, 18, 21. So I know that I've correctly identified all the combinations in their right proportions in the sample size. So now that I have all the probabilities on a single die, on 3 dice. So this is the probabilities if I roll 3 dice. Here are the outcomes that could happen. Now I can start comparing it to what the Emperor would roll, okay? Because he's also getting 3 dice. Now, at this point, some people are going to try to say, why are you going through all this? The probability is going to be 50-50. Either they roll higher than you or they don't, right? And that just doesn't work in probabilities, especially in this case, because ties go to the blocker, all right? So the probabilities are going to be skewed towards the blocker, but how much so that's why I did this problem and what we're going to discuss here in a second. So now we kind of have to do comparing some outcomes, okay? So the way I've set this up is these are what Mon Mothma could possibly roll. I shouldn't say I because I'm not necessarily the rebel player. So if Mon Mothma rolls a 0, well, then she's already failed because just by the Emperor showing up, she had to roll at least one success. So in this case, she would fail. So anytime the rebel player rolls 0 in this opening move, they lose. Okay. But if they roll a 1, now the Empire has to roll all zeros. Okay. So if you flip back, if I show you this page, or let me backtrack here. So I already demonstrated that the probability of rolling a 1 is 36 out of 216, okay? So I have to, Mon Mothma has to roll a 1, and means to multiply, the Emperor has to roll a 0, and that's the probability of rolling 0, okay? Or, if Mon Mothma rolls a 2, it gets 2 successes, then the Emperor has to either get 1 success or 0 successes in order for Mon Mothma to complete the mission, okay? And then it just goes on from there until you get to 6. If Mon Mothma rolls 3 criticals to get 6, then the Empire has to roll anything but all criticals, which in this case, is the probability of rolling 5 plus the probability of rolling 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And remember, they can roll 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0, and that's why we're adding, okay? And then this has to happen, and the Empire has to do that, and that's why we're multiplying. But because any one of these things can happen, right? Like, theoretically, Mon Mothma could roll a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, so on and so forth. We need to add up all these probabilities. Okay, so if I multiply out all these terms and add them together, that's going to give me the probability of success. It's going to give Mon Mothma the probability of success. And I really should have thought about these pronouns and stuff like that before starting this. And maybe one day I'll become a great YouTuber and do that. But anyway, so we add all these, multiply these out, add them all up, and that's going to give us the probability that Mon Mothma can successfully flip Utapau. So I want you to take a second and think of what it might be in your head as I slowly reveal the page here. Do you have a good guess? And the answer is 38.37%, which is quite low. You would think Mon Mothma would be so great at diplomacy that she could flip Utapau, but just not against the Emperor. And again, the reason why this probability gets skewed is because ties go to the blocker, all right? And if it were flipped around, Mon Mothma would actually have, a 61 and some change percent chance of flipping that. So basically, they would flip roles. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video there. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope this will lead you to think about some things. What could this possibly lead you to think about? Well, if you're the Empire player, it may be a good idea to hold on to Palpatine in order to stop an Utapau. So if you see Mon Mothma on a mission card on the first turn, it's a pretty good bet she's going to go there. Or if you think the rebels need one more build alliance in order to meet an objective, well, maybe you hold Palpatine back to go block things. If you're the rebel player, knowing this, maybe you assign 2 leaders to the Build Alliance mission. I don't know, just some things to think about. Much like most things, just having some information and some statistical analysis will help you go a long way. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit heavier on the math than normal, but I think you guys are coming a long way, watching YouTube videos and learning about math, or you probably already have had statistics class before watching this, and hopefully you find it entertaining. So I don't have anything to say. One of these days I'm going to get good at ending videos, but for now, see ya.